You see Manley's on the fiddle. He's getting it in. He's like, the devil came to Georgia or whatever.
For my soul.
How come? Do they still make that kind of country, Steve Conley? You know, like storytelling country, like Merle Haggard or whatever those dudes.
I don't know.
Did I put you? Did I throw you under the bus?
No, I would ask the people in our comment section to answer that one. I don't know.
Come on, you're listening to the big country, fresh country.
Oh man, that was funny. You know, and I also enjoy that people are really digging the what do you call it? The Pencil to Pencil Orchestra.
Beautiful.
The Pencil to Pencil Philharmonic. Welcome everybody back to the podcast. It's Wednesday again, and it's also it happened again. Hey Mike. Guess what day it is? Welcome back, you guys, to Pencil to Pencil, your favorite pandemic podcast, coming to you live in Technicolor on your video scope, on Facebook, on the tubes of you, and we always have something interesting to do. My name is JAMAR NICHOLAS, Philadelphia's favorite son, and also I'm going to do it, Johnny Carson. That's wild stuff.
You need to get a Johnny Carson t-shirt.
Maybe I should just start wearing suits to the podcast.
Yeah, wear those like crazy plaid suits like Carson used to wear. Those
my Herb Tarlick collection.
Botany or whatever it was. They used to
Botany 500. Right?
Yeah, it was. No, I'm thinking of Kanu Singh's line of fine men's.
Fine leisure suits.
It shows your pecs.
And I am only but one host, dear viewers, of this fine show. There are other people who are involved in this project. In the bottom square is Fred the Skull, and also manned by our good buddy and Master Chief of Comics, Michael Manley. What's up, Mike Manley? Yeah, you're in rare form tonight, Mike. And Mike, pray tell, what would one do with a skull like that on their studio table?
Well, I had to draw a skeleton this week, so. And then I used to have a model of a skeleton, but I don't know what happened to it. I think I had to order a new one. I got one, I think like one of those remainders that like Dick Blick, but I realized that it didn't have all the. No, that's what it was. Somebody at school gave it to me. It goes, oh, you can use it for the class for the students. But it would never stand on its thing, because you have that little hole you put it on.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I was having. But there was a website. If you type in posable human skeleton, there's a website you can go to where you can take the skeleton and rotate it and move the arms and the legs and stuff.
Oh, like digitally, like the
and you could literally probably take a screen grab of that and put that into your piece if you wanted. I drew it by hand.
Well, of course you did. I would expect nothing less from Mike Manley.
But it's good to rotate everything, you can see for foreshortening, especially like the back with all the spine and all that.
I see we're reaching a theme here tonight. How apropos. Look at me pulling all of my $5 words tonight. Well, thanks for checking in, Mike. And also, I would be remiss to not mention our newest host. And,
Ringo Award nominee.
Vote now.
Vote. That's right. The votings are still open.
Vote for your friends.
That was so blatant. I couldn't respond to it.
I mean, I know all my friends are going to vote for Steve, so I did too, right?
Well, and it also gets hard when we have a lot of buddies in this. So there's a lot of people who are up for nominations. So I say things like, "Good luck to everyone."
No, you say fight.
No, read them all. Just read them all. Visit our websites. That's it. We just want readers.
That's it.
Readers are more important than awards.
Highlander can only be one cartoonist at the end.
That's how it works.
I love it.
Your digital sword will be sucking out the souls of your victims.
This is like Highlander.
That's right.
You know him as middle-aged Steve Conley. That's one of my favorites. Well, this is funny because you know this, Steve, and I'm not lying. Ever since we've known each other, I've called you by the name of the book or project you've been drawing. I've called you Astounding Space Thrills, Steve Conley, for years. What's up, Astounding Space Thrills, Steve Conley? But I like middle-aged, but also I enjoy Stone Cold Steve Conley. How are you, sir?
I'm very good. I knew that. I was walking into that when I named the comic that. I knew it was going to be Steve, the middle-aged Conley. I just knew it. When I'm in my old age, I'll be like, oh, yeah, I'll take that. I'll take middle age.
Deep Red asked, can fans vote for the Ringos? Wasn't there a fan vote or something like that?
In the nomination side of things, before it gets to the ballot, the fans can vote in any category, and there are fan favorite categories, and there's also fans can help select the nominees. I think a number like maybe up to 2 per category are selected by the fans, and the rest are selected by the blue ribbon panel of jurors.
Ooh, I like blue ribbons.
Of which JAMAR was an inaugural.
That's right. I was in the first wave of jurors for the Ringo Awards. It's a prestigious honor. Still humbled that I was asked. So it was a great thing, and it was really difficult too. It's not like we all stood around a oil drum that was on fire and just like made up stuff. Like there was warming our hands. There was there's protocols and things like this. So it's all on the up and up. So I'm very excited.
You don't get to warm your hands tonight, sir.
Move your fingerless gloves from this fire. Guys, we're here tonight. If you haven't seen Pencil to Pencil before, boy, are you in for a treat.
Just go on a watch spree, just days and days. You watch this now. You literally watch this for days.
That's a real thing. I think over what has been JRD's in the chat knows how long we've been doing this, 2.5 years, 3 years.
Yeah.
There's probably like 2 days worth of content that you could just click play all and just kind of sink into your couch.
That theme over and over. You could just loop that theme. You could just go through each one.
Well, somebody in the chat was like, "Yo, can I get a burn of that?" And then I was like, "Yo, you like CDs?" I'm kind of punchy tonight, you guys. This will be fun.
You just hold your cell phone up and hit record.
So what's going on tonight is we just came off of a really nice string of guests. We had Tahid Wandia last week, which was a fantastic episode. We got to talk about what's going on in the comic strip world. And there's a lot of changes going on. Like Mike and I were talking not too long ago about some of the changes happening in the syndicates. Mike, you want to kind of touch on that a little bit?
Well, basically in Australia, Rupert Murdoch's News Corp dropped all the comic strips, and then followed on that news, another series of papers in Australia dropped all their comic strips, and then followed by Lee Enterprises in the United States, which owns 77 papers in 26 states, dropped all the King Features comics, I believe.
Wow.
Certainly dropped all the story strips. And then I think they put out like a uniform, like, here's the 10 strips that we're going to keep,
Mm-hmm.
A lot of trouble in the syndicates. They're trying to figure out what to do. Mm-hmm. We're encouraging people to visit the websites. And to write your letter to your editor if your paper does not carry your favorite comic strip or takes your favorite comic strip out, write a letter to the editor, because they actually do listen to the readers. It's one of the few areas where the readership can actually really have an effect if they take out, like Peanuts, and everybody writes in and goes, "Hey, wait a minute, you don't got Charlie Brown?
Right.
There goes my subscription." They might actually put it back, but they're always trying to figure out, like, the newspapers really have wanted to get rid of comics for a long time. And for some reason, I don't know why, they always seem to put feature editors in that want to get rid of the features. So I don't really understand that aspect of it, but write in and say, "Hey, look, put the Phantom in, or put Judge Parker in, or whatever your favorite comic strip is."
Is there a central resource or anything like that King Features is set up to say, here's where you can write people, or here's the newspapers in your area, anything like that?
No, because they don't know. There would be no way that would probably be as effective as, like if you live in Detroit, you got the Detroit Free Press. If you live in Philly, you've got the Inquirer and the Daily News, which is actually owned by the Inquirer now, I believe. But their comic strip section is crappy. So you can write in, again, it's like a generational thing. People probably over 40 expect there to be comic strips in their newspaper.
Like it's an evergreen thing that won't change, right?
Right.
Yeah.
It was sort of surprising to me coming into comic strips from comic books. But, there's people who have been reading these strips. Someone like the Phantom has been around 86 years. There literally are people who've been reading it for 50, 60, 70 years.
Yeah. And you've heard from some of these people, like some of the biggest fans of like the Phantom, like, I know that is it Australia or New Zealand or one of those places?
Australia is really big. New Zealand, in Scandinavia.
Yeah.
Also in India, because actually in the beginning, the Phantom sort of took place sort of near India, and then as he went along, they moved the character into Africa. But so yeah, they're in fact, King has a new publisher beginning late last year, I believe, or beginning of this year, in India, that's reprinting a lot of the newspaper strips, but also a lot of the classic old Phantom stuff.
There's a question from our buddy James in the chat. I like how Steve says James from YouTube. He always says where they're calling in from. James says to Mike, "Do you think there's another space where the Phantom fans would migrate to reading?"
Online, basically.
Yeah.
Do you think if another publication started adding the Phantom, that the readers from the papers that abandoned the strip would migrate over? Or you think
you could go to was it Seattle Sun-Times? A lot of people, when King Features had trouble with their website, a lot of people would go to the Seattle Times and read a bunch of the strips there. I know for a while when the Detroit Free Press dropped Judge Parker, they still carried it online, so you could go to their website. This has been an ongoing problem for 30 years,
Right. This isn't new. This didn't happen last night.
Yeah, this didn't happen overnight. The comic strips, like, people notice that they're smaller, so they may run them, but they run them like that big, literally, in some papers. They're like 4 inches by 2 inches, Was that paper, when you go to Connecticut, there's that paper that would run all...
Is that the Hartford Courant?
Yeah. And they they would run all the strips. But yeah, the main thing a reader can do is to write in and go, give me more Mutts, give me more Doonesbury, give me more Phantom.
We need more Doonesbury.
He will probably be one of the last to go because he usually run on the editorial page.
Yeah.
So
I think crabgrass. If we had more crabgrass, that would help.
I love it. So to that point, we are not going to have a guest tonight, but what we were going to do was use some of our expertise to entertain you tonight. Our good bud Steve Conley was nice enough to volunteer himself as tribute
as a sacrificial lamb
to do a demo for us tonight. So I tried to chew up some time for you, Steve, so you didn't have to jump right into it. So
I appreciate that.
So Steve, tell us what we're going to learn tonight.
So it's been a topic, and I really hope Tim's in the Tim. I do see you there on the Facebook. This is a question a lot of people have had about creating 3D cartoons and how I've been modeling figures and minis and things like that. I've been sculpting myself on an iPad. You know, I do all my webcomics on an iPad, and I don't know if I could take control over the.
Well, show
I got a lot of things cooking right here.
Show us that mini.
Let me get control of the my camera for a moment.
Oh, wow, look at that.
Oh, did I break it?
I think you broke it. Hold on, let me get you out of there.
Oh, then we caught up.
Okay, go ahead.
There's like an advanced control for the camera, so I could und.
What? Yeah, that looks fantastic.
So these figures are sculpted very, very, very tiny. They're cast. I have 3D models. I also, but these are the ones that are by a casting company, and so they're really incredible detail.
Oh, that looks beautiful, Steve. I didn't see the duck.
So like even the there's a mini on the mini, a really tiny critter there. I don't know if we could see it.
Yeah, you can see it.
Yeah.
So I figured, fantasy environments have to have critters upon critters.
Yes.
So I've been using this 3D modeling program called Nomad Sculpt. It's available on Android devices and iOS devices. There's a free demo on Android devices. It's only $15. It's not a monthly fee. It's not like some of these other programs that expect you to get onto a monthly subscription. And so we're going to make a figure. I'm going to show you beginning to end as well, beginning till time runs out. How far we can get along with this. And we're going to start with Leon, everyone's favorite protector of the playground, the extraordinary Leon.
Hello.
I thought you were going to start with the playground and then do the chain link fence,
And so the guys here will help handle chat and keep things conversational while I'm, playing on my iPad with a pencil.
So I'm sorry, Steve. So before Steve starts, guys, this is going to be very interactive in the form of, if you have questions for Steve, please ask. Please ask, and I'll let Steve know, and we'll kind of keep it going. If there are questions that have nothing to do with what we're talking about, try to save it for another episode, since this is going to like exhaust itself really quickly, and I want to make sure Steve stays focused. So don't ask Mike about Darkhawk tonight. We could do that another time.
What?
That'd be perfect. And also, I won't get too far into the weeds unless someone has a specific question about how things work. I might narrate a little bit here and there, but if I gloss over something and people want additional details, just ping, and we'll see if we can answer.
Fantastic, Steve.
Let me ask you a basic question that probably a lot of people are thinking right away. Is this a memory or RAM hungry program? So like if you got like the basic Joe iPad, will you be able to do it, or do you need to have a super iPad?
I think you could hit a wall of storage. The files are big. That might be the thing which you might run into most often, that the files are just quite large. So close out this camera thing. If I stutter here for a moment, that'll be the reason why. But I think an older machine can do it. I know you can install this on your phone. Again, iOS devices can open this thing. You can't do detail work on, as far as, not with my eyes, I can't. You do like an iPad Pro or a higher resolution device would probably be better because the stylus is more accurate. on a non-pro device, the stylus doesn't have the same pressure sensitivity, the same resolution of the point that you're pressing on. So having a better device, I'm using an iPad Pro Generation 4, which is a few years old now. But the biggest problem for me is the file size. But if your file starts to get too large, the program can crash. There are some files that I've built, like Waddle Bottom at some point. There are steps you can take along the way to economize the files, to bring the file size down, to keep it from blowing up. But if it gets too complicated, gets too large, the app will crash. And it doesn't have an autosave feature the way lots of other programs do. It's set to a timer. 5 minutes is the default. I've set it to 10, so I'm not interrupted quite so often. Because Procreate, if you use that, it saves everything you do. Your machine shuts off. You'll open up your device, and Procreate files are still there, saved to the last moment. This does not do that because the files are so complicated. If it were constantly saving, it would be laggy. Your hard drive would be your battery would die.
And I think Mike asked a really cool question. I want to ask a couple more in that space. Is it possible to use this app with your finger? Like, do you need the Apple Pencil to make this work?
I think you can. I think because you can pinch and zoom, to some degree, if you zoom in enough, your finger's going to be very small relative to the thing you're sculpting. So I do think you could use your fingers to do this. I did do one on my iPhone, which doesn't have a stylus. I was able to sculpt a skull pretty quickly, not to the quality of the one on Mike's desk, no doubt, but it was pretty good. Like if you had to create a simple cartoon character, I bet you could model. I bet you could sculpt a simple model on your phone using your thumbs.
Wow. Okay. All right. Cool.
And then there's a big process from once you get your file to the place you like it to bring it over to get it printed. And there's some steps there we could talk about. Maybe as we get further along, I can give people a quick rundown of that.
Yeah, I'm very interested in that too because
the whole logistics of from your iPad to some forced labor camp in China where they're making.
No, the guy who prints mine is a guy in California. He just has the ventilation and a resin printer, and he resin prints one-offs all the time. It's
wow. Because that's even beyond the program, it's still a mystery. Because even though 3D printing has become more accessible to the hobbyist, it's still kind of like a mystery. It's a new language to a lot of people.
I see a lot of ads. I don't know if you guys have, but I see a lot of ads in the last month or two on Instagram for somebody who's saying, "Hey, you got your drawing of whatever." You take it and turn it into a thing, an actual 3D thing.
That's cool. I mean, this might get completely made obsolete by some AI in the next week and a half, but until then, this is still the best way. Oh, and
some AI that'll look at you. I know exactly what you want. Hold on a second.
Have you had anybody who uses it on Android, like James uses it on his Samsung Note? Are there any kind of differences in the OS? Like,
not that I'm aware of. What I will say is that this program is, I think, what I've heard is that it's worked on by a very small team, like almost an individual has built this program, and it relates very similarly to high-end 3D programs like Maya and stuff like that. The interface looks the same. They just have more key commands. They also have better mechanical tools for extruding things like girders and rivets. This is very much a ball of clay. Think about this as being very much a organic workspace and not a mechanical one. I mean, you still have to know XYZ coordinates, and you're still in the computer, but it's very much like dealing with a ball of clay, not with lasers. It's not a lot of some of the oldest 3D software was would let you extrude something and bevel it. Like this was like all the early lettering and in Illustrator and Adobe Dimensions. It would take some font and extrude it and bevel it, and you thought, oh man, that's a logo for my comic. I'm all done. And this program doesn't do beveling. You think it's the most basic thing in the world, but it doesn't do it. But oh yes, it's called Nomad Sculpt.
Nomad Sculpt. Yeah, my fault. I knew that it wasn't right after I put it in here. Nomad Sculpt.
Yeah, you got it. All right, let's
Yeah, let's do it.
And so Jamar has given me a number of faces, clips from the upcoming Leon the Extraordinary graphic novel, October 4th. Pre-order now.
Word.
And I'm going to be using those as reference for this. And those are the images that were provided, and I'm going to bring them up in the environment that I'm working in, and I'll be looking at those while I'm assembling these. So there's going to take some interpretation. There's definitely a lot of the work is done with the color in a cartoon, and so that's not, we're stuck working with a single material, and so that limits some of the things some of the storytelling we can do. But let's give it a shot.
All right.
So I'm going to start this thing from scratch, deleting the object that the program starts with. I've already saved the file, and you can see that little auto save in the upper right. Well, every once in a while in the center of the screen, you're going to see auto save, and that's usually a good opportunity to take a drink because it can take a moment, especially the more complicated the file gets.
Mm-hmm.
So we start with a piece of the sphere. That almost all the face. When building a face, I'm starting with a ball of clay, and we can rotate it around. All of this is big. It's all easy to move around. Running your finger.
I'm still bugging it. That's on your iPad, man.
Mm-hmm. So there's a thing. All the geometric objects. Hey, Terry. All the geometric objects start off as primitives. They're not a ball of clay. They're still just a mathematical expression of a sphere or a cube or something like that. You can't play with them and mold them because they're not silly putty yet. They're currently just a math thing. So I hit the validate button. That turns it from math to clay, essentially. And so we can take the drag tool and the various other tools. And with symmetry on, I'll show you the basics. We take some clay here. This is before we build necessarily Leon. Switch my goggles.
That's right. You got to put on your Kurt Rambuses. That's right.
And so symmetry is on, so you can build his face, little chin, some cheekbones, and turn subtraction on and dig out an eye socket.
Yo, that's crazy.
Right?
It looks just like him.
That's like I used to pick with Mike all the time when he was painting something. I would come up behind him and go, "Yo, that look real."
So you can see what's easy to do. So broad strokes, simple, flat, simple, very simple shapes and very simple cartoon shapes. It's very easy. This program is also great at doing monsters. It is very easy with clay to start building in various, creatures. And I think we showed an orc that I'd created a couple of weeks back.
Yeah.
And, these suddenly start looking like exposed muscle tissue.
Right.
But this is all a single shape. Haven't put any thought into it, but rotating it around lets you see things like the profile look good. And we'll build in eye sockets and eyeballs and things like that. Now, Leon wears goggles. I'm going to bring up our reference. And I'm going to turn our sphere invisible for the moment. Can I actually just delete that? And this is the reference. You can bring this up and have it in the background and adjust its opacity. So I like having it off to the side a little bit, shrunk down, and not quite so opaque. So we have the reference there. It's in the environment. You can adjust the opacity. Let me go back a bit here. It has 1,000 levels of undo, so feel safe. But you can also adjust the overlay. So you can have your illustration appear on top of the artwork as you're working. So if, let's say, you had a bit of photo reference there and you really want to get the eyes exactly where you want them to be, you can have the photo right on top of the figure.
Wow. So it's almost like you can almost kind of like trace it, quote unquote.
Yeah. You can have to say, the nose is too low. So, you get it closer anyway. So I'm going to delete.
I remember, what was it? It was Bryce used to able to bring in a bitmap, and then it would extrude the form. Does it have a function like that?
No, those bump maps were very early ways for the 3D software to pretend to have contours. Like it would say, okay, the brighter portion of the grayscale would be higher, the darker would be lower, and it would create these things. That doesn't exist in this program. I think it does in Maya, but not in this program. And I've looked at things like Blender, which is great, but it's also super complicated. I mean, for me, I dabble with math, but I'm not a
programmer. Slide rule out where you're like, I gotta get that eye in there.
It can do so much. It's really like, you have a gopher problem, so you buy a tank. It feels like I don't need all that. I don't need all that stuff. Blender can do real animation and rigging for characters. This program doesn't have any rigging in it, so once you get your character the way you want, you really can't bend it. You could take the model from here and bring it into another program where you could do that, but okay, let's build Leon. I'm sorry, I'm rambling.
No, you're good. And hold on, while you're kind of transitioning, our good buddy Terry Beatty. What up, Terry? Terry says, so is this better for 3D sculpting a human figure than, say, a robot or spaceship?
I would say a human figure. You can trick it into doing a spaceship. There are some interesting videos where people have done it pretty good. Was it Berkey?
John Berkey.
Berkey, who would do all these crazy science fiction things. I bet you could do the Millennium Falcon pretty legitimately with this program. You just have to really think. You really have to sort of trick the computer into doing the thing you'd want it to do, because while it can do cones and it can do cubes and spheres, if you wanted to cut out the windows of the Millennium Falcon's cockpit, for instance, that would be a math problem, because you'd have an object which is basically a cylinder, like a cone with a flat end, and you'd want to punch out the windows somehow. And so how do you construct the shapes that punch things out? And so it really, I wish there was a way to import an SVG file. Like, let's say in Illustrator, you created this perfect line drawing of your, I don't know, a circle template, for instance. You create your circle template, bring it in here, and then you're able to extrude it a little bit, and all those things would be knocked out of it. Love that. It doesn't exist yet. And now that's my cat in the background who probably wants to tell me about the what he's just created himself.
Oh, your cat just said, "Yo, order."
I got a sculpture right over here, buddy.
Oh no, he said, "Order Leon Extraordinary, October 4th."
He did say that.
I've got something, meow, extraordinary.
Meow.
So what I'm doing is I'm trying to create the profile of Leon here. I'm just trying to get I want to build a chin, because for the sphere, I'm going to start with a chin. Cartoon kids are great because they're very round faces. Like I imagine we could create Charlie Brown pretty quickly. But I appreciate everyone's encouragement. This is my first time creating somebody else's character, and they're watching. Like I could work on this for hours and then show it to somebody and be like, "See, look, you like it?" And now it's more like he's watching while I'm doing it. I don't want to ruin his baby.
Don't drop the baby.
So building ears, I find I take the brush tool, and his ears are low. I take the brush tool with a small brush. I'm also going to do something called voxel remesh. You see me do this a lot. Voxel remesh is something where basically the mesh is the thing. Let me take a step back. We'll hit the wire mode. I'm going to take another step back. This is what the thing looks like. I don't know if you can see all those little lines.
Yeah, it looks like you're looking at it through a screen
Yeah,
window.
like chicken wires being wrapped around the thing, or a screen mesh of some kind. When you remesh it with a higher number, and we're going to take it to, like, let's say 25, remesh, these squares are going to get smaller.
So like more polygons, basically.
More polygons. So it is smoothing. It takes more time, because when there's fewer polygons, when you smooth it, it just collapses. Again, it's like the less detail that's there, the more quickly it collapses. The more detail that's there, the more you can build on it without destroying it. You'll start to see things like when you're pulling out a shape like a nose or an ear, that you can see those polygons stretching to try to create what you want. And every once in a while I'll remesh, and what that does is it evenly distributes that mesh around the object again to give you more wiggle room. So that's, if there's a tip that has survived. I've only been doing this for 9 months, only sculpting for 9 months. So if there's any tip that's survived the 9 months of this process, it was that. It's that remeshing often can solve problems and make things a little bit easier. It looks like the ears are fairly flat on the side of the head. They tilt back a little bit. If they're too high, I'll move them down the figure. There's a little cube you'll see in the upper right corner. It's got blue on one side, beige on the top, orange on the bottom, red on the front. If I just tap with my finger on the blue side, it locks to that position. If I rotate a little bit, tap on the red side, it locks to that position. So I use that a lot to check and move things around. And my cat has never been so...
My cat was just here too, so it must be cat night.
Yeah, I think my cat wants some screen time.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Does he come over every once in a while and just demand that you like pay attention?
Oh yeah. I'm getting ahead of myself. Nervous.
You're doing great.
Clay tool. I'm going to build up the nose. It seems like it's about dead center. If I'm wrong, let me know.
No, I'm here. I'm guiding you.
I feel the presence.
He's like Obi-Wan. He's over your shoulder. No, a little to the left.
Well, it's so interesting that cartoon characters can have such different faces. You know, that they can have, like, some will have noses that are just nubs, and others will have nostrils, and some don't. It's really curious that how different they can all be. I love it.
Well, also, as we were talking before, JAMAR has now drawn Leon thousands of times.
Sure.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So he's much more consistent than the first 200 times you drew him. Because you're still sort of, and you haven't drawn all the different emotions of the character, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, maybe yelling, or
Yeah.
maybe depressed, or there's a lot of things you do. Like, well, maybe when he's sad, you actually make the shape of the goggles.
Yeah, like change a little bit, right? Yeah.
That's one of the things that's a question you often get asked is, how do you make your character look consistent, right?
Mm-hmm.
And of course, in animation, they make a model sheet that says, this is how you build it,
Right.
which is what Steve is doing here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they usually do a bunch of poses to give you an idea of, like, when their person is really yelling, their mouth can get really big, or they can't get really big, or
Right.
whatever. I'm sure if you go back and you look, you can go back and look at Charlie Brown and Peanuts and look at the style that he was doing the first couple of years, and then look at the style by the mid-'60s. Very different.
Mm-hmm.
It's that happens with most characters. Like, if you look at the early Popeye cartoons, and then you look at, like, the strip in, like, the 60s, it's like kind of like all evened out. You know what I mean? Like, everything is kind of like smoother.
Yeah. Yeah, like it goes through a render or something like that. Yeah.
Well, it's not as scritchy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Seeger had sort of like a real kind of like a rough, kind of a scritchy style,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You look at the stuff later on, and it's like nice and smooth, like more nice, perfect arcs.
I love this. I'm fascinated with this. So, and also, Steve, I had a question just about kind of using the tool. So it's almost like there's like digging and adding, right?
Exactly.
So like when you did the nose, is that a different button press to kind of like add volume versus to dig into the?
No, it's a clay tool, and the clay if the clay is set, basically every tool has an inverse. So if I use the clay tool, I turn up, and you see two sliders here, one at the top and the second one, and that's very much like Procreate. This controls the size of your brush, and the second one controls the intensity, the pressure of which it's moving something. So if I set, let's say, the drag tool with a very small brush but a lot of intensity, I can pull out points.
Oh shit!
But if I make the brush large and lower the intensity,
oh wow!
So it's a larger brush pulling over a larger area, but not being so rough with it. The other one was an extreme example of a pinpoint that had a lot of strength, so it yanks it off in a direction.
Gotcha.
So in the case of this with the clay tool, and this goes for most of the other tools that are available here, when I'm building something onto it, oh, that's the subtraction. The opposite of what we're doing. So
I like that head you did too, because Leon's kind of got an acorn head.
Oh, is it okay so far?
Yeah. No, this is great.
The profile, he's got cheeks. I want to make
sure. Yeah, he does. Yeah, get the cheek.
But so this is the clay tool building up, and then there's a little button right there. It looks like a teardrop called sub, and you'll see it flashing off and on right here.
Okay, yeah. What is that?
Sub is the opposite. When that's lit up and it's beige, that subtracts. So clay that's set to positive will build, subtract will subtract. Another good example, I use this often for hair and things like that, is the crease tool, which is, it's going to dig a crease into something, a very sharp. Okay, now we've got a little vampire Leon. But if you turn that the other way to subtract, suddenly you're going to build a peak.
Gotcha. And
now we've got Ming the Merciless Leon.
He's ready for Halloween. Gotcha.
Okay, so I want to build those cheeks in while I can, and I'm still using everything symmetrically in the center of the universe, because let me show you another thing about symmetry, which is weird. It's not symmetrical to the shape. There's a sphere I built back there. I just want to hide it for a moment. So we're building everything symmetrically. I just moved him off center, and now as I draw this, as I add stuff, it's adding it off center. It's no longer symmetrical with his face. It's symmetrical with the universe. So I'm moving it back to where it was.
Okay. Gotcha.
So if you ever find symmetry is not doing what you want, you may have moved your figure off the middle center, and you can always put it back where it was supposed to be. Let me see if I move it someplace randomly and rotate it. You can go back to the move tool and say reset. Put it right back where it was at the beginning, and now it's going to continue to be there. But it won't change all the molds and stuff we've done, but it'll simply move it back to the beginning point. And so a lot of what I build is in the center and then move it where it needs to go. So if I'm going to build a hand, I'll build it in the center, then move it where it has to go. Building a foot. All right. The clay tool. Big old brush. We're building the cheeks. It's kind of a subtle roundness to the face. So I want to build it with a larger brush, but less intense, but keeping symmetry on. Oops. And now the storm's coming in. So hopefully that'll a little too strong still.
Are there any questions from the chat while Steve's starting to dig into this? This is really fascinating. And Steve, there's a lot of people in the chat who are talking about comparable programs like ZBrush and things like that.
This is a baby version of ZBrush. I think this would probably be, if you haven't done sculpting and before you want to invest in all the money that comes with ZBrush. I mean, unless you're a student and can somehow get a discount or something, it's just a very expensive program. But ZBrush is awesome. It's all this, everything I'm doing here on steroids, in a good way. So the idea would be that you've got key commands. Like currently, I'm building all this stuff. I have no key commands. It's all done with a pencil and my fingers. So a lot of people, I watch them on Twitch and stuff, and they're sculpting, and that toggling of positive to negative, they can do with a keystroke. So they hold a key down and it's a negative. They let it go. It's a positive. Meanwhile, I'm tapping and all this stuff. But I might need more time to process what I'm doing next. So
sure. Instead
of building up the cheeks with clay, I'm building them up with a little bit of dragging, just to drag a little bit, just a little more roundness at the bottom of the face.
Steve, you just got co-signed by Tim Fielder.
Oh.
Tim said excellent work.
Oh, sweet.
Give him his jowls.
All right. Hair is always tricky. If you've seen the wizards that I've sculpted, the hair takes forever. So let's try that right now. I'm going to put in eyes because I think this is, even though they'll be hidden behind goggles, I think that people who are watching will want to see how do you make eyes. So using the
So there's another question for my buddy Stu. What up, Stu? Stu says, is this the same company as ZBrush? No, this is one dude who's kind of just making the software, right?
Yeah, I think it was someone who wanted to make 3D modeling available to other people who don't have hundreds and hundreds of dollars. And I think he wanted it on the iPad as well. So let's validate this. And I'm going to set this to mirror right to left. And so
it just drops it right in there.
Yeah, so again, we're on the center of the universe. It drops it right in. And I also have symmetry on. So if I move this sphere out.
Oh!
Yeah.
He's got eyebrows. Oh, that autosave is my cue to drink.
Yeah, so I added, and I'm glad that for some reason I thought you were going to draw him without the goggles, and that's also that's a good reference point for me because there were points where Leon wasn't wearing his outfit, and so you kind of know how the goggles sit on his face, and also that they're bigger, so they kind of cover his eyebrows.
Right.
So it was good that Steve saw him just without his goggles.
Well, I'm going to create the goggles now, and my cat is really going nuts. I think it's also the storm rolling through. If you lose me, I apologize.
Yeah, no, we'll just pantomime it.
Well, I am going to rotate this thing. Okay, you can rotate things manually, but you can also open up the settings, and there's numerical boxes, the red, green, and blue you see there. You can type in degrees, 90 degrees to rotate it, 45, whatever you need. I end up doing that a lot. I mentioned before it's not great with math, but neither am I. Oh wait, I made one error. Let's do this. Let's do this. I talked before about there being a thing called a primitive, and then when you validate it, it becomes more of a clay object that you can mold. You can still rotate it when it's a primitive, but you can add a hole to the thing. So you can make donuts, you can make mugs, cups, cylinders of any kind, and
I'm making cigars.
So you could also, adjust the radius so the thing could taper. I'm just making these goggles now, and I wanted to duplicate them and hide one for the moment. I'm also concerned about making sure I get a lot of this done before the plug is pulled. So I'm taking the other cylinder we have there. You can see it turned to weird and furry. That's because there's two circles on top of each other. I'm going to cancel out the hole on that one, and I'm going to scale it down a little bit, and I'm going to see if I can get another. If anyone has another cat that I can have instead of this loudmouth.
No, you're good, bro. Go ahead.
He's fine. Yeah, don't worry about it.
All right.
Until he's jumping up and like scraping at your face like Wolverine.
Oh, you just made a Rollo. I'm hungry.
Look at it from the front. Bring the. Oh, come on. Oh no, I had two different radiuses going. Okay, it seems like they're very thick around the edges, or do you think they should be thinner?
I think they are kind of thin around the edges. Like probably if you look at the bottom, like the full front shot.
Like that?
Yeah. And then they kind of like arc to either the left or the right.
And that part that comes off, that's thicker than the outline, right?
Yeah.
Or is it meant to be the same thickness?
It's called kind of the same thickness. Yeah.
What's that?
Yeah, I think it's the same thickness.
Okay,
I hope I'm answering your question.
No, I think you are.
they're almost more like Wayfarer glasses than goggles. So they're not just two circles on his face. You know.
Oopsie. That's going to be the lens that'll be inset. It's hard to tell sometimes with this lighting. This kind of chocolatey color is the default matte cap. You can change it to different ones. I find that this one just shows the most amount of detail and imperfections. Like if you accidentally clip a bit or add a dent someplace, you can totally see it with this particular matte, this particular finish. So that's why it's that color.
So wait, Steve, right when you clicked on that last menu, a bunch of different colored circles. Yep. I was going to say balls, that I changed my mind because we're all 13.
Sure.
What was that? Was that just a?
This is how
the color. Like what was?
No, in this case, it is more like this is the shading menu, and this is determining how you want the entire universe to look. Basically, everything, all the material in here is lit like this.
Okay.
So. It's basically taking that sphere that you see right there and applying that as a wrap on everything, as if everything was lit like that sphere. So if we want everything lit like that,
okay, I got you.
So these other options are available.
That's so cool.
And I just find that the default one just really, I can see the most detail with it, and it helps me understand it. And it's not too intense. It's not, this one's pretty great too, but it gets a little bit eye strainy for me.
Yeah, I could see that. Steve, before you go into your next bit, Tim asks, how are you finding Nomad for hard surface modeling?
Not great.
And can you explain that for the people that don't know what Tim is talking about?
That's kind of what we were talking about a little bit about organic material versus mechanical material. Like if you want to make a mech, I don't know if this would be a great program. If you wanted to build Optimus Prime, probably not great. But in terms of organic material, people, animals, Swamp Thing, it'd probably be pretty good. Trees, dinosaurs, stuff like that, I can see really, really good for this material. Just anything that mechanical, it just becomes really difficult. Anyone who's watched my Twitch stream, twitch.tv/Steve Conley, I will spend like a bit of time trying to figure out, okay, how do I make a hexagonal nut for for just to have it appear like it's attached to a mechanical device, like a hammer or something like that. I want to make something steampunky. But it would be great to have another program that I could use to create some of the more geometric things. When I created a Sir Quimp, the mini I showed earlier, he's got his sword. Could not do that in this program to any degree of satisfaction. It's beveled. It's got runes on it. The runes I could do in this program, but the idea of a symmetrical object that's beveled, I still 9 months into this program, I still couldn't imagine how I would do it. You're basically you're asking to create a, I don't know, you sculpt something out of wet clay, sculpt something mechanical out of wet clay, a typewriter out of wet clay. You could do it, but if anyone looks closely, the keys are going to be a little mushy,
I'm with you, Steve.
Just so you know.
No, it's the chat keeps asking, or they keep talking about ZBrush and some other stuff, but I don't want anybody to kind of miss what's happening here.
I dig those other programs. I just don't know if I just don't know enough about them to talk about it. I mean, this is again, I only recently have I considered myself a professional sculptor, only in that I had a successful Kickstarter.
Right.
I'm primarily a cartoonist, so when and I use this for my cartooning.
But you think in 3D though as a cartoonist?
Yeah, you have to. I think that's why this is really kind of our, it's a secret weapon we have. All right.
Yeah. Well, hold on, Steve. Shelley has a great thing that she just said. She said, "Sorry, I don't have a phone for it though. Still use a desktop." Is there a kind of like a desktop version of this, or is it primarily for like tablets and
This is
phones. You know what I mean? Like, could you
Yeah,
put this
this
on
is-
your Mac, on your desktop?
this is for tablets and phones, but it's analogous to some of the desktop bits of software. There was one called Sculptress, which you may be able to find. It was Maya, and it was basically this kind of material, this kind of program. I don't know how many objects you could add to the universe. Like if you added a sphere, I'm not sure if you could add a second one. You might be able to, or it was limited with the number of objects you could add. You might be able to, as long as you continually merged one onto the previous one, you might get away with creating more complicated things. But it was discontinued for other things. ZBrush, Mudbox, like Tim's mentioning. Those are all those may be available. I think those are desktop, and they might be great to play with. So let me see. I think it's gonna the looking at it just from the front, not in terms of the depth.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that's protruding enough to create the shape, or do you think it should be taller?
Let
Let me hide this sphere. This oopsie.
No, I think that works.
Does it? Okay.
Maybe just like when you're done, to kind of flare the bottom part down a little bit.
Flare at the bottom?
Yeah, kind of like where it's coming back in. No, keep going, man. It's I don't want to get in the way. This is great.
Okay. I'm using the trim tool and the lasso tool to cut out the excess part there. I'm going to select that. And oh my goodness, my cat has never been like this before. All right, everybody. Tell you what, can you vamp for 1 second? I got to unlock the door. I got to unlock because he's now doing full on Hulk Hogan against the door.
All right, the cat's bugging out.
You cannot contain me.
Guys, you're watching the Pencil to Pencil podcast, where
Any
we are
questions about?
LIVE live on stage.
He's everyone's favorite. He wants to get in on this. Sorry, buddy. Oh, crazy cat. Okay, clearly I made a mistake there when I merged these things together. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I didn't want to try to perfectly line the depth of these things together. So I'm going to, let me tweak that one more time. I wasn't happy with how that lined up at the top. I don't know why my cat was so crazy, but I'm glad he's here. I love his face.
So he was on the other side of the door?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Cats don't like any door closed.
He's never been like that, though. Oh, my goodness. I'm going to increase the mesh. What was that?
Could be the storm, too.
Yeah. Could be he just wants treats.
Don't we all, Steve Conley?
All right, so now I'm looking at this from the left, and I'm concerned. See that kind of misalignment from top?
Yeah.
I'm going to fix that by going to the left here and using the trim tool and a rectangle and slicing off the front. And now everything should be smooth.
Oh.
I'll do the same thing with the back of it. Part of the thought of this is no matter how, if it's a little bit clunky in places, let me undo that a little bit. I'm gonna see if I can smooth this top before I.
That's crazy.
Bring them together. Because I was worried that as I smooth the edge sort of melts a little bit, which I like in terms of using this as reference for my own drawings, because that kind of soft edge provides it catches a little more light, and I like drawing that stuff. Okay, so that's our glass. That's our frame. That's our glass.
And this is kind of like on its own layer, right? This object.
I love that my cat has decided to make this even more challenging. I'm so excited.
It's all right.
Hard, Steve. Meow.
All right. This is a professional broadcast. I apologize.
I hear a lot of people's animals, during the day. Somebody's dog or cat, everybody's. at home, you got your animals. I mean, there's that one famous one where the guy, I think it was MSNBC or CNN, where the guy was talking and then his toddler breaks in.
Yeah.
And then the wife comes in and like, oh my God, and like takes the baby out. And people,
Oh, right. Yeah, that was like an early pandemic thing.
Right, yeah. And the people are like, what are they doing? Why,
That's so commonplace now. People's just like, oh yeah. That's my bearded dragon in the background.
All right.
Now he's the monocle, the evil monocle.
Well, we'll cheat and we'll mirror the image left to right.
You just go bloop. Wow, look at that. That's crazy.
And we're going to cheat. There's no translucency when you're going to print this in resin. If you're going to 3D print this.
Mm-hmm.
So you would individually print the goggle lenses and have to glue those in.
Or we could leave them out, right? You could just not include them. And the thing would print without them so you could see the eyes through.
Or Jamar would paint that little window pane shape on each and every single one.
All 500 of them.
Are they too large? Have I made them too large?
I think, you know what? I think they're a little further away from his nose. I would kind of like
a little higher up.
Yeah, they're a little higher and away from each other. Like if you look at the image on the bottom, the reference, you see there's like a lot like space in between.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They are smaller. I was just making sure I could see the band on the side of the head.
Yeah. And some of this is just cartooning tricks. You know what I mean? Like,
sure. Okay. That's the glass. And we'll do a little something here. We're going to adjust the opacity of this blending. So you can see a bit of the eye through there. So it's possible I model the eyeballs a little too low.
Well, now Jamar will just have to start drawing it like the sculpt.
Yeah, this is off model. Mike, what do you think of this tech?
Oh, I mean, it's very fascinating. I wish I had time to play around with it. I mean, actually, when I went back to school, I majored in painting and I wanted to have a minor in sculpting, but I was not able to devote the time that I needed to be able to do that, to do both things. But I love sculpture. And I would like to do that. There's a really good guy on Instagram called is it Craig Mullins, I believe.
That name sounds familiar.
Really good sculptor. He's actually, I think, in Pennsylvania.
Oh, yeah.
You can go take classes with him. But yeah, I would love to sculpt. And I think, like you see that little 3D thing, that's what I think of in my head when I'm drawing a character. I actually think of the characters being like a 3D thing. I probably got that from that first drawing, instructor book I had, Andrew Loomis, because he showed basically what Steve is doing there. Like if you take these basic shapes and you want to make the cheeks and whatever, he showed how to do this very basic shape thing. And if you put this shape here and then you turn it and then this shape is it, you can turn your characters. And that's something I could get as a kid, 10, 11, however old when I got that book. Okay. And he had a little mannequin in there that you could rotate. So as long as you could rotate those shapes and keep those shapes where they're supposed to be, you could actually rotate your character in space.
Right.
Now he looks a robot.
So, Steve, tell us how you're making this headband here.
There is a function called masking, selection masks. I use this a lot for things like capes, and what it does is it allows you to use it. Oh, my cat is going crazy. I love it. He's getting into my stuff. He wants to eat wires right now. Okay, so I'm gonna use the selection mask tool, the mask tool. Excuse me.
He just wants the car keys, Steve.
And I'm just gonna draw the shape on top of the head here. And what you can do is you can extract that. And what that will do is it'll create it drew through the object, so you're going to see that on the other side. But what it does is it just creates a brand new object extruding off the surface you just had. So in the case of this, his head is round.
Mm-hmm.
I drew a line on the head and pulled out a shape, a brand new shape that follows the contour of the thing, a perfectly equal distance from the thing we just had. And that's what gave us our headband. Mm-hmm. Now, I think the headband dips down a little bit in places. It might go lower on the head sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What I try to have happen is it needs to connect over his right at the top of his ears. You know what I mean?
At the top of his ears?
Yeah. That's kind of my little rule for it. Yeah.
Sweet. And so I'm just going to use the trim tool. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the drag tool and connect this. I'll try to anyway. Oops. I'm going to use a much larger brush and zoom way out. I'm going to try to pull that thing we created
down into the
glass.
The murky depths.
There you go.
We'll tuck it behind the.
This is so neat. And guys, if you have any questions for Steve, let's get those going. Let's try to keep it on topic, please.
Oh, wait. I had symmetry turned off. Okay, that's a mistake. Somewhere I turned symmetry off.
Okay.
So what that means is this part of the band. Oh no. Oh, actually, this is going to work out great. Let me show you what I mean by that. I was pulling the left side of the band forward, and the right side should have been moving with it with symmetry on, but symmetry was off. So,
okay.
So the way to fix that is turn symmetry off for the trim tool, cut off a chunk, and then I'm going to mirror left to right. And just duplicate the side we have that works, and now it's symmetrical again.
Wow.
So easy peasy.
Lemon squeezy.
I have made so many mistakes with this program. It is fantastic to know how to get out of these jams.
Well, that's how you learn anything, right?
Right.
Drawing, right? You draw something wrong and then you fix it. You know?
Yeah, and I'm big on making mistakes. I'm big on not just in my entire life, but in
there's all those murders, Steve.
Well, I mean, those seem to all work out great.
Santa Clara, the murder capital of the U.S.
Yeah, I have no convictions, but
literally.
But in terms of, I love making these mistakes with the drawing programs because I say this on the stream all the time that second chances are beautiful and rare things, and I like to get them whenever I can. And that's exactly what these are all the time. It's like, oh, I screwed up. I get to do it again. And I get to do it right. And I'm like, so much of my life, I would love to have that.
Yeah.
So I count myself lucky whenever I get a chance to make these fixes.
Our buddy James says, Steve, what made you decide to start 3D sculpting?
I've always wanted to have merch of my toys, of my characters. I wanted to have my figures as D&D things. And it's part of, you do a comic, and maybe it's just, I do a comic, and I'm like, it's cool, but it's not like, it's just a comic. I've been making comics my whole life. It doesn't feel like it's not real until it became this other thing. Like when it moves from one medium to another, it's almost like you're legitimizing it in some way. And I know that's just low self-esteem talking, because everyone who makes toys would love to make a comic. You know, so it's just grass is always greener kind of thing, I'm sure. But part of it is just like additional merchandise. To see if I could was a big part of it. And then it just turned out to be fun.
Yeah.
So, okay, let me mirror these glasses, and hopefully they're in the right place, left to right. The lens is still there, left to right. Let's darken the lens, make them kind of, what are they?
Those blue blocker shades.
Or
It's got those Ric Flairs on.
what do they call them when they're responsive to the light?
Oh, the transitional lenses.
Transition lenses, yeah.
That's not a bad idea. Leon might have to add that to his repertoire.
Okay, so now the tricky bit is the hair. Also, it seems like the sides of the head go straight up, and then it's into the hair.
Yeah, so his head is kind of like an acorn, so it kind of like flares up, kind of like straight up.
So I might end up redoing this band around the head to match the shape of whatever I'm about to do next. Also, I'm a big coward. Let me show you a nice little cowardly tip. We've got this. Type faster than the computer can handle it. Face. I'm going to duplicate the face, but keep one, turn it invisible. And so I'm going to do work on the duplicate copy, so we have a backup of the original one. And I still have to do the bridge between over the nose there. Let's cheat here and do that. I'm going to duplicate the frame, separate the frame. That breaks these two pieces of the frame into two separate objects. I'm going to delete one of the objects. So this duplicate frame we have, I'm going to move it to the center of the, oh, I don't want to reset it. I want to move it. Why is it not moving? Oh, it did move. Great. Reset. Use the trim tool, rectangle, the move tool again. Rotate along the red axis 180 degrees. That'll flip it over, I hope. Up. And then I'm going to reset it back to the origin of the universe again. And I'm just going to try to use that same oval shape as the bridge. So basically using whatever the arc of the glasses are to be the arc of the bridge of the nose.
Oh, look at that.
There might have been 100 other ways to do that, but.
And then you just insert it into his face. Right?
And then with the trim tool and symmetry on.
I'm enjoying that.
Then you just push it right into his brain.
Is it higher than that? Well, and you do want to, when you're going to 3D print these things, you do want these glasses will be mushed into the skull. They're going to be mushed into the head. Everything's going to be mushed in because it has to be for it to print, you know? Because anything that's loose suddenly becomes really impossible, or there has to be some sort of lattice in there to keep the whole thing from falling apart. All right, let's get this hair. We can do this. How are we doing on time? Oh, we're doing splendidly. You could tell that so I stream. If you want to watch me do more of this stuff, it's Tuesdays and Thursdays, 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. East Coast time on Twitch.
Yo, Steve's stream is fantastic. He's got his own universe over there, and you're a great teacher, Steve.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you. I'm trying to be better at taking compliments. Not easy.
Feels like Kobe now.
All right. Hair. There's a couple of ways that I create hair. One of the easiest ways is a big fat brush. Oh, sorry, a very small brush, but very intense. We talked about that a minute ago, where it's like, you know. And then you could take the drag tool and move stuff. take the drag tool, intense but small brush, and
basically pull out, right?
Yeah. So you can do that in all directions and kind of help create that. But because his hair, I remember when I was drawing I did a little bit of fan art of Leon a while back, and I treated it like they were like tubes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, all right. I don't know if you'll hate this version. Let's try it. Let's see.
Mm-hmm.
This program's got tubes. It's like the internet.
Oh, right. The internet is not a large truck. It is a series of tubes.
It is a series of tubes. All right. So, and I still have to do the face and teeth and chin and lips. But
well, do you want to go to 10, or do you want to do the 9:30?
It's all up to you. If I'm here for the people, I'm here for the people, and this cat.
You guys want to keep going? You want to see Steve get a little further in this? All right, keep going, Steve, and we'll figure it out.
Right. I have just an additional difficulty level here because
your cat.
This cat. Al, come on. I'll be ready at 10 o'clock. Come on. That little dude. His name is Atlas, and we got him. He had a very tiny neck, the tiniest neck, and this big apple on a toothpick head. And his neck is now gone full Michael Keaton Batman. It is just like this. It's neck with this little nub of a head on top. Okay, so to create the hair, there's these things called tubes, and
tubular.
His hair is gotten finer since his Protector of the Playground days.
Has it? Maybe.
I think so.
That Jerry curl. We put that Jerry curl.
I have nothing to add to that.
Yeah, I'm like, all right. So this program can make tubes. And I think for purposes of printing, this might work great. So tubes is amazing in this software because you can drag these things along a shape, an object, and they will align to the thing. It's hard to even explain. I'm going to show you right now. Say the back of his head. Let's say it was a superhero. Let's say he was wearing like a skin tight mask
right.
or something. So take the path tool. I'm going to draw. And again, two-dimensional. It's just on the glass. I'm ticking those lines down. And when I hit this, it follows the form of what it's landing on. Right? Crazy. So helpful if you want to have, like when they got little vines running down the side of a tree trunk, or the piping running down the legs of a person's uniform, or the lapels of a jacket. There's a Toxamancer mini, which is just getting printed now from the last Kickstarter I did, which ended on Thursday and ended up great. If anyone wanted to follow up on that. But there's piping around the edges, very much a Mike Waringo kind of thing with all of Telos's characters. Everyone had piping on everything. So easy to add that kind of thing with this software. Anywho, okay, getting back to it. So using that same functionality, that's why I'm drawing things often away from his head, because if any of these tube lines intersect with his head at all, suddenly they'll bend in space in a way that we don't want them to. So I'm thinking about having those available to add. And I'm going to start with clay, thin, strong. His hairline's very flat across the top. It's like in some of these pictures, like the scent that where my cursor currently is, very flat across the top.
Yeah.
Should it?
Yeah. Well, I've been noticing that as I'm going along, and like when I would draw this stuff, it seemed to make sense, and then when it's all inked and colored, it looks acorny flat. But I'm starting to make it rounder. Like in the top one, the top left, like I feel like it's a little round.
Top left, you like that one? It's almost got a part to it.
Almost, yeah.
Yeah, because that one on the far middle right, from the back view, you definitely see kind of a part going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it could be wind, or who knows what kind of combat he was.
Yeah,
What kind of excitement.
So kind of imagine that you have dreadlocks and you twist them with either side of your hand, and they're going to fall, kind of like on either side of your head. You know what I'm saying?
Sure. Gravity is just going to take over.
Right. Yeah. So there's a lot of gravity going on.
So the hairline's well forward. Well forward. I got to move this forward a lot. Where am I? Drag tool.
People are clowning the process, so they want some mac and cheese in the chat. That's cool. I kind of like the textures on what you're doing.
It's nice, right?
Mm-hmm.
I love that stuff. It's great for like hands. It's just like you just feel the lines of like you want to do a palm reading. So currently symmetry's on. I like this at the start of the hair, just so I have a basic balance to the hair.
Mm-hmm.
And then we can mess around with it a little bit further along as we get further down.
Our good buddy Matt Waringo from the Waringo family dynasty says, Steve, Nomad Sculpt needs to sponsor you. You're a terrific ambassador.
Oh,
I'll be buying the software as soon as I get back from vacation.
oh, that's great.
And also, David Peterson was roasting you a little bit in the chat.
Oh, that's lovely. He's great. I have no idea how this is going to work. Forgive me. I know this is your baby. I don't want
to. I'm just seeing what happens here.
Me too. I don't know what I'm doing. Let's be absolutely clear. I just know part of it is that I just love that sometimes it can look really chunky, and I love that so much. I like that it's like, I'm hoping I just do a nice version. Well, I want it to be unmistakably Leon, even if it's kind of how when I was drawing Star Trek, I was like, I'm not sure if I can make it look like William Shatner, but I can make it look like Kirk.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
He's a hard guy to draw.
Oh, very difficult.
Wait, wasn't William Shatner's face the mask for Michael Myers?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, the outside that turned inside out.
How did that happen?
Oh, was that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I forget how somebody found that mask at, like, one of those Hollywood places that sells used.
Mm-hmm. Use Shatner skin.
Yeah, Shatner skin.
He sheds every few months. People don't know that.
Yeah.
What is this?
Shatner skin and get your new killer's face, your new serial killer's face.
Hey, what's this attached to the side of this tree? Oh, that's Shatner skin. He's shedding again.
Yeah, if you go to Hollywood in the fall, it's just like
you see him up against a tree, rubbing. Gotta get the skin off.
Oh, snap.
If anyone's wondering, that's not true. Mr. Shatner does not shed.
That is
He
not.
does not have skin. It's all plastic.
That is not true. Deep Red says the mask was a prop from the movie Devil's Reign. Thanks for that. Deep Red.
So I'm just duplicating these tubes and moving around, and then I'll try to make them symmetrical and also round them off a little bit. I'm going to run like a smoothing brush over them to kind of give them softer edges so they don't look like
extension cords. Right?
Yeah, or like Barry Windsor Smith's Machine Man version of Jamar of Leon Jamar.
Yeah, I love so after you kind of apply the coils, can you do that same kind of smoothing technique on them?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
What up, El Jamal? Everybody talking about Shatner mask in the chat.
Fantastic.
And this is also cool because, like, just kind of working on Leon at this capacity and just kind of thinking about like whatever happens next with him. It's always interesting to see other people's takes on this character, and I'm still learning them. Like Mike said earlier, like I've basically drawn like 3 graphic novels of Leon, in a comic strip, and I'm still learning how he works.
He's such a great character. You gotta be so happy with it.
Well, thank you, Steve. It means a lot.
And I love that. And everyone seems. I hope you feel how excited everyone is for you, because it's really great.
Well, no, I'm starting to feel it. The electricity, the quickening. Hold on, I gotta do the light. Yeah, it's good. It's good stuff.
Can you feel it, McCloud?
Can you feel it, McCloud? So our good friend Suzanne Waringo from the Waringo Family Dynasty says, so has everyone pre-ordered their Leon book? I love it.
Good question.
10-4, that's right.
So now you can duplicate those tubes as a group and then I just add them on?
Yep. So what I did was once I got part of them on one side, then I just duplicated them and moved them over. So I'm going to take a big old smoothing brush with very large brush, very intense. I'm just going to run it along this thing, and it should round out the edges of the. And if these things aren't melting enough, I'm going to lower the resolution. We talked about that before. By increasing the resolution, you make the thing more resilient. By lowering the resolution, you make it more meltable. So you see that it's falling apart now.
Yeah. Wow. It's like hot dogs.
Hot dog hair.
That's why they call you hot dog hair.
Well,
so Steve, do you wind up with and I don't know if I can explain this fully, but that when you're working with this material, do you almost feel like you could do this? Like, do you think you could sculpt in real life? For what if I handed you a thing of clay, do you feel like you have a better handle on it?
I would have a better handle on it, but no, I couldn't. It is a different world. I wouldn't be into. I like to do. I'm a coward. I like saving versions along the way.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a whole other thing, and I'm positive I don't have the chops.
Mm-hmm.
It's just different. It's just I think we talk about AI art all the time and how it's like it's not real art and it's just image. It's prompting. It's not. It creates images. It doesn't create art. It creates images that look like art or. The sculpting community, I think I shared some of my sculpts to a sculpting Discord, and they're like, well, it's not really sculpting if it's on a computer.
Ouch.
It's yeah, it's just folks who are like, that's a take. I don't know if it's great. Move back a little bit. It's not right. No, it's too tall. Or the hot dogs are out of control, everybody.
Yeah, I think his hair is too big. Like, is there a way you can kind of like almost like zoom out on it, or like I guess shrink it?
Yep.
Shrink the hair.
Or push it. Can you push? Yeah, you can push it down. Because it looks like his hair does this.
Yeah, kind of like.
You're saying it shouldn't do that.
No, Mike, you keep talking.
No, it seems like it does this. It comes out and then it from a center and then goes down
on the side
to the side.
And yeah, you can be okay to let it like hang off the sides too. I think that's another thing that probably bothered you. Because it almost like it's almost the same radius of his hair. I mean, his ears, like it kind of come down on both sides.
Right.
James says, Steve, join a Nomad Sculpt Discord. You can post art and talk to the dev.
I will.
Steve Conley said, bet. I'll be there.
It feels weird. I'm doing too much cheating. I'm doing too much trying to get this thing done. I'm just gonna.
Yeah, work on something else. Whatever you feel.
And then the ones up front are like
Kind of,
like that, like coming.
yeah, like a little cowlicky, but there's like a couple of them. It's not a lot.
I'm hiding the hot dogs, everyone.
Pause.
Hey, this is a kids program.
So you know what? Since we're kind of on the back end of this, I know Tim Fielder was late to the chat. I don't know what happened there, but he asked a question about printing, Steve Conley. Can you talk a little bit about that while you're picking with Leon's here?
So once I create a model that I don't hate, this is not it yet, and I hate them all until they're done, and then I just hate them for 2 days more. I export them as STL files. You can export them in a number of different formats. STLs worked for me. I export them as an STL file from my iPad to my desktop computer. Once I'm on there, I use a program called Mesh Mixer. Mesh Mixer is discontinued for the Mac. I go and find an old version of it. I highly recommend finding an old version of it. Mesh Mixer has a few things that will do is it will go and remesh the entire thing, all those polygons, all those triangles. It will go through and check them for flaws, check them for places where the math actually doesn't make any sense, where there are gaps in things. It will fill in cavities. It will look for obvious things that would choke a 3D printer. And once it runs that, it generally brings the file size down by about half. Another step before I even get to the exporting the STL file, I will go through an object which might have hundreds. The model bottom was built one feather at a time. It has all those feathers. I have to merge them all together and combine them because currently each one of the glasses, let's take a very simple example. These glasses are defined the front, the sides, and the back. If I merge them into the face, suddenly the backs of them aren't defined anymore, right? Because they're not, those polygons all go away. So the more you merge these pieces together, the fewer things there are to define, and the file size comes down. There's also steps you can take within this program to reduce the geometry. But all those steps are taken beforehand, so bring the file size down to the last file I sent along was just under 300 megabytes to print a mini that was the Intoximancer, the wizard. But the Cirquimp minis and other things like that were about 200 megabytes. But in the program, they could be upwards of a gigabyte.
Wow. So, and maybe to this printing, because, you know, one of my little daydreams is to have a 3D printer in the studio, but I would probably put my drink on top of it and mess it up.
Yeah.
Have you seen my coffee? Oh, there it is. It's in the 3D printer. I guess the question is, when you're building this and building these files, and I've been on your stream. I love your Twitch. You even like go so as far as to kind of like layer things on top of layers. So it's almost not like a hollow, like an Easter bunny. You know, like your stuff isn't like a chocolate Easter bunny. It's solid in the middle, for the most part. Does that make the file harder to print, or is that a cheat? No,
the only thing that really makes it harder to print is you have to think about things printing, especially with PLA printers and any kind of printer, that you have to have gravity is going to be involved in the printing of the thing. And if you create something which isn't supported, for instance, like we can have, if he had a sphere over his head, a light bulb. If you made a light bulb over his head, you have to put something to hold it up. You have to think about things structurally. Right. So that goes for everything. So if everything's going to be standing on a base, again, for instance, this is one, I closed out my little super zoom thing. Hopefully you can see, like he's leaning very far forward, right? So I had to think about, is there enough material here to hold his body up so this thing can stand, right? So it had to be able to stand up. So you have to think about those things. And also in terms of the cape, has no support underneath it. This is fine for a resin print, but in terms of a PLA printer, that might have been very challenging because it will have to print little structures to hold everything up. Because when this comes out of the printer, it's got supports. Most of the software will create a lattice work of supports, which like you then have to clip or snap off.
Like those little bridge sprues, right? Yeah.
Exactly. And especially when you're doing something gravity defying like that cape. It's just gonna. I wanted it to look like a sweep from above. I want it to feel like he's swinging the sword like a crazy person.
Yeah.
And so, but that you have to kind of think in those terms, like it's going to be more problematic. This would be very difficult, or someday it will be fairly challenging for a company to cast and make thousands of them. And that's a whole other process of taking those files and finding a vendor who can deal with them. The very first time I showed that Sir Quimp with all the arrows sticking out of them, the printer was like, okay, we can do this, but you're going to have to remove all those arrows. Because it's just, there's no way to have it come out of a mold as a single piece.
So what would you do then? Have to stick on each arrow?
Yeah, so that's what we did with this. The company that did it said, "Oh no, we can do that. They just have to. The customers will just assemble them."
Right. You just have to put them together yourself.
It's a model kit.
Yeah.
And Warhammer people are used to that. Apparently, that's what they do. And so it's designed in that way. I've turned symmetry off. I'm just kind of freestyling it right now.
Yeah, that's the best way.
But you can see that little extra bit where the beige is turning a little bit off. That's the geometry falling apart.
That's spooky.
So that's looking at the wire mesh, right? It's broken. So we're going to remesh. And hopefully it will now take that lattice work and distribute it evenly over the thing as best it can.
I had to remesh a lot in high school. Tim asks, which service do you use for printing? Or do you have a 3D printer, Steve?
I don't have a 3D printer. I'm in an apartment and don't have the ventilation for one.
Sure.
I use a service called Simon's Magic Shop. I found them on Etsy, and they've done lovely work for me. It is $15 for them to print a primed sculpt. Like this figure would probably be. This one was $25 because they painted it silver for me. Like they'll charge a little extra, and it includes the shipping.
That's nothing.
So I send them the file, and about a week and a half later, I get this in the mail. It's $14 if it's just the raw resin. It's $15 if they put a coat of primer on it, and it's $25 if they paint it silver. If you've got the time, it's easy enough to drop your own. So paint it with any acrylic paint.
Yeah.
In terms of the mass production, like okay, oh man, I'm going to show everybody this again. Sorry, I'm going to take over the camera for a moment.
Sure.
I'll probably pause for a second as my camera starts to play tug of war. There we go. So autofocus off. Again, all the detail on that. Where are we?
That's fantastic, Steve.
All the detail on that duck. That's not a 3D print. And a 3D print probably couldn't get you that.
That's resin.
That's a casting company that created they start off by making a high quality print, the same kind of 3D printing that's used to make crowns and caps for teeth.
Oh, well, I know about that.
So like even the pupils of the eyes are there. I don't know.
Wow.
The man, I keep getting it backwards. Just so much detail. Anyway,
you glue the arrows on.
Right, I glued the arrows on, and this is a one-off resin print, so that you can see that the little runes are there on the. If I can show it right, the runes are there on that little bit of obelisk on the ground, and you can see the vines that are draped over them. Those are those tubes we were doing before. So a resin print can be fine, but it's just never going to have the quality of that other thing. They create these. They do a master print, which is, again, using this high-quality 3D printer to create a master. Then they create molds from the master, and then they cast them. And so that's basically a fourth-generation thing, and it's so beautiful. And that company's called Trenchworks.
Tim, are you asking Steve about his art process, or are we still talking about 3D printing? Tim now asks, so are you lighting your models and then snapping a pic for reference, or literally taking the pic and doing a paint over? I think he's talking about when you're illustrating.
I am doing, almost always I'm doing the paint over. I'm doing a paint over. I could show folks that if they want to see that. There's none of the dreads sneak out underneath. It's more of shaved underneath that.
Yeah, he's got a fade, so his hair kind of like stops above his ears.
So I'll hint at hair, hint at a
Yeah.
hairline back there.
Yeah.
And his neck, how thick is his neck? Is it kind of Charlie Brown or is it?
It's kind of Charlie Brownish. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna clean up, do a little razor work back here.
That's right. Clean his kitchen up. Clean that line. Get that line up. There you go.
I'm gonna.
You can't go to school with a busted fade.
It's all busted right now. That is like he is. No. Yeah, that's jacked up. I gotta fix that.
Yeah, bro.
So, all right. There's more to do. I gotta do cheeks. I gotta do. He's got serious cheeks.
Yeah. Pause. But we have 15 minutes left, so why don't you pick one thing and try to take us home? You don't have. We're not going to finish this.
But I would.
This is fantastic.
So it's almost always a paint over. Sometimes it's not, but the piece I did yesterday. If you check out yesterday's stream on Twitch, they save this, and I'll open it up real quick. This was a piece I sketched it in Procreate. I then went right into Nomad Sculpt, and we spent basically we ended on time 4 hours later, and had this thing built.
Wow,
man.
So it's a mug. It's a dragon flagon.
I see what you did there.
And that lighting was very much it's very much exactly what you're going to see in the final piece. So it's got some lighting in there. I probably went too much with the little details, but it's sort of like, this is Dungeons and Dragons. I want to have Jeff Easley. I want to have like Harold Otis and Clyde Caldwell. I want it to be evocative of all that stuff. So I do paint it. I do get it to where I want it to be. But if you take a look at the before and after of the pieces, that program's really bad at shadows. It can do things dark, but it can't do a cast shadow. And so I spend most of my time painting shadows in. And it adds so much to the piece. Okay, so let's get the face in here, because I feel like the hair is close-ish. It takes some work to do. It's still a bit messy up there. But let's see if we can get the ears could be bigger too and rounder.
Yeah.
Dang it. Drag tool will turn symmetry back on because we want the ears to be symmetrical. Even if I turned it off for the hair at the moment.
This is so cool.
And they're nice and round. And we're gonna get the clay tool in here. So I've seen that there might be some shade cast at people who do paint overs. That was a vibe I got in some of the communities online. Like someone was saying, I specifically don't do a paint over. I don't know if that's because usually they're not the one who is sculpting the original thing. They're like getting something out of Daz Studio or some sort of 3D clip art and then painting over what would have been Poser back in the day.
Oh, like a marketplace thing.
It's
almost like clip art. Right.
Yeah, you get, but if you get a 3D bit of clip art and then you mold it the way you want to mold it, and then you paint on top of that, but you're still, it's like being accused of being a tracer.
Right. Stinking tracer.
Mm-hmm. So I kind of get that where people are going with that. I love this character so much, Jamar. You've created something beautiful.
Thank you, Steve. You're way too kind to me. I appreciate that. I appreciate all the love.
So traction tool. The storm is ending. The cat is quiet. I think it's the pencil to pencil orchestra is asleep.
Now, when both of your do both cats get crazy or just one?
They take turns. It's very much a Lady Hawk situation where they never see each other except when they're both going crazy. There's one of them is medicated, so I gotta deal with that all the time.
That's the worst.
Can you hear it, my brother? Can you hear the storm coming? And he's on his damn stream. It's like he doesn't care.
Okay, this is my favorite episode so far
This was really fun. And Steve, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I keep.
No.
Do you feel like this is a different type of hot seat than when you're doing your Twitch stream?
Yeah, it's a different audience. Mostly, it's your baby. I'm like, hey, watch Steve learn how to perform a bris.
It's not that serious.
Girl, right?
That's right.
There's some pressure. There's some pressure. Is what I'm saying.
No pressure. But this is just part of it, and it's a demo, right? We're figuring things out.
It's a demo. But there's let's see the back here. Oh man, I turned symmetry off. It would have cut the work in half here if both sides were smoothing at the same time. He's
gonna have to get that checked. Yeah, that's he might have to go to Dr. Pimple Popper and check that out.
It's not perfect. It's not remotely perfect. It's got so much more to do. But I feel like for 60 minutes, 70 minutes, I think we right.
Now, Steve, that's a good question. Now, I know, like, I marvel at how long your Twitch is, pause. But it's like, so you do these streams are like usually 4 hours long. How long does it take to do something as detailed as, say, Waddle Bottom?
That took a month of streams.
The king of waterfowl.
That took a month of streams to do.
Wow.
It was a ton of work, and it was false starts, and it was like just taking a while to come to the realization that I have to make this thing out. I have to build one feather at a time. So it's tough. It's tough. There's all these. I want to put these marks on the band here. Symmetry's on. Brushes small. Subtractions off.
Yeah, it just kind of has like two like band hashes or something.
It's like one down the middle in the back.
It's that like that. Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Is that about right?
Yeah, that looks good. Our buddy D Brad says sometimes, Steve, you should sculpt some Kirby hands.
Yeah, that's actually that's sort of the go-to is. Well, you should. If I ever make the hands, you see I build them one digit at a time so I can mold them the way I want to mold them. I can take over the screen again. But the hand of the wizard holding the staff was really like a lot of work to try to make sure that the knuckles curled.
Yeah.
And that's just it. I mean, being a cartoonist, I think we have an advantage in this thing. We're not afraid of the tools. We've created a ton of drawings in our life.
I have a silly question.
Shoot.
So when you're drawing something by hand or on paper, or even when you're using your iPad to draw something, we all have a natural lean, right? Kind of like when people remember used to write letters, you used to write like script or it was cursive. You always kind of turn the paper to a little bit of an angle. And I know it's probably good practice as a cartoonist to try to keep your paper straight when you're trying to draw. Do you find some of your stuff to get a little slanty because you have a natural like lean to the way you work? Do you know what I'm saying with this kind of program?
I don't know because of Procreate, I end up flipping the image a lot, and that kind of corrects for it. But I may in the 3D. I'm just not seeing it. I still feel like I'm such a novice when it comes to this that I feel like I'm such a novice that if it's there, I'm not seeing it just yet. Gosh dang it! His smile is so nice, and I'm afraid I'm butchering it. Let me smooth these. I'm gonna smooth these out, and I want to get the dimples because those are just key, I think. Like you created this thing. Why was it not symmetrical?
He does have a smirk, so that's cool.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, there's the symmetry again. I wonder why it was missing a second ago. But
oh, so cute.
Ah,
And you kind of just like dug that out right there, right? You're kind of like scoop, 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 right?
Yep.
This is fascinating, and I'm sure there are people watching that may, and this is a kind of assumption, may never, ever, 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 ever want to download this program and try and do it. But it's also very soothing to watch somebody work in real time. That's why I think something like this, some like our boot camps, are, I think, really well received. It's a different way of interacting with the art.
Sculpt camp.
Well, that's what I thought about this program, or think about it as a crash course, like something introduction to anything, like I don't know, assembling a book.
Yeah.
I mean, so many people here are cartoonists and they've never put a book together. They don't know a single thing. They don't know a thing about Kindle Direct Press or about Kablam, or how do you prepare a PDF for download? How do you run a Kickstarter? There's just so much like this between, I don't know. I could spend days talking about all those things.
It's called the Everything Podcast.
It has to be, because I mean, isn't that the best part about this gig? Maybe I think that we get to do every bit of it. I mean, I know kind of the dream is to have someone else do your accounting and your promotions and stuff like that. But someone talked about how doing these conventions is a lot like being traveling salesman. And
I used to say carnies, but I get it.
Carnies, perfect. But you've evolved. You've gotten to the point now where it's like, okay, Mr. Nicholas, here's your latte and your copy of an Australian newspaper, Sans Comics, as you requested, sir.
Thank you, and keep the tip.
All interesting content removed.
That's right. It's all redacted. That's right. There's nothing but black rectangles in this newspaper. That's the way I like it.
Some
the rugby scores, please.
Yeah, just some poor kid in the lobby sitting there with a marker.
All right, so Steve, give us a takeaway. Can you do like a TLDR for tonight's episode?
Yeah. So, Leon, Protector of the Playground, as it was formerly known, now Leon the Extraordinary, is available October 4th, 10/4.
10/4, good.
And this program is called Nomad Sculpt. It works on iPads, iOS devices, including iPhones, and Android devices, and it is available for $15. It's a lot of fun. I wasn't a sculptor 9 months ago, and now I'm sculpting things, and they're not terrible. And they're helping me as an artist. They're helping me. I could show you where that dragon ended up.
Yeah.
Let me save this version of Leon. Almost all the sculpts I've made, the first Quimp I did, I started over again. I could imagine starting Leon over again with all the experience from tonight in my head. I could start over, and it would be infinitely better.
Yeah, that's crazy.
This is the model. In terms of painting over, it's a very thin paint over because I put so much detail in there. In terms of the model itself, it's still showing through greatly. It still looks like a 3D model. This part you can see it's more painterly, which I wanted, but that will be an illustration for the Intoximancy book. And here's another piece I did. This started as that sculpt. I brought it in as reference and then painted over it. Do I have the original thing in here?
It's so good.
I'm moving the original sculpt up where we can see it, I think. No, that is it. That is very close to it. So you can see that I painted, the eyeballs are kind of there, but that's how I paint on top of it. That's the after and that's the before.
That's wild.
So it can't do shadows. If you look at the nostrils and you look at the eyes, it is a world of difference. But I am painting on top, and the sword was like that. I sketched in a ton of runes because I'm an idiot. But taking those 3D model, using that reference, and then going in and painting all that stuff on top to make it, I don't know, I wouldn't feel the confidence otherwise.
Yeah. You just have to kind of create projects for yourself, right? And that's how you learn.
Well, I hope it was helpful. We'll go back to talking about comics and cartooning and sequential stuff next week.
Nah.
Next week, you're going to sculpt Ghidra, the three-headed monster.
The cast of Girl Patrol. And
I love it. I love Girl Patrol. That's awesome.
I'm glad it was helpful. Do check me out on Twitch at twitch.tv/Steve Conley. Tomorrow afternoon, 4 to 8 p.m. East Coast time. I'll be working on another 3D model and some illustrations.
Mike, tell people, especially now that we're dealing with the end times with newspaper strips, it seems like, where can people read your strips that you draw?
Well, they can go to Comics Kingdom. That's the King Features portal. And you can see the stuff every day. You can also get a subscription. You get a subscription. They also have archives where you can go back and look at a lot of classic older newspaper strips. I guess the Seattle Sun-Times was carrying a bunch of those strips. But again, you have to really, it's every strip, every paper is different, because some papers carry Judge Parker, but they don't carry the Phantom. Some papers carry the Phantom. They don't carry Rex Morgan. It's whatever that feature editor decides they want to carry. But the best bet is to go to King.
I was going to make a joke about, is it called the Seattle Sometimes now?
Sometimes. But that's the best. And to write into your congressman, your senator, write into your local features editor and say, hey, I want my comic strips.
Send your pictures to dear old Captain Noah. That's our Philadelphia TV kids host. And on my end, guys, we're running out of runway. Leon the Extraordinary is touching down next month, y'all. 10/4. I'm very excited. Thank you, everybody, for hanging out with us. We'll be back again next Wednesday at 8 p.m. Look for me tomorrow at the same bat channel, 9 p.m. for Coffee Break with JN. There's so much programming, y'all. And Steve, give them the Twitch dates again for when you go live.
Tuesdays and Thursdays, 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. East Coast time. Perfect segue for Coffee Break on Thursdays. I'm the warm-up act. But check me out there. Subscribe to the channel or follow. They say it's what they call it over on Twitch. And join the community. You can see all these images over on my Discord. All that stuff's available on Twitch.
I love it. Guys, thank you so much for your eyeballs. We can't do this without you. To my co-hosts, Mike and Steve, I'm JAMAR NICHOLAS. You know what to do now, you guys. Get ready. We're still in a pandemic, so you better wash those curvy hands. Yeah, look at that.
The 3D.
You're going to sculpt those next week. All right, have a good night. See you later. Bye.